is the window where Abigail would be seen standing. Sometimes when you're in the house, but most of the reports have been from outside the house where they would see a woman staring out to sea. And then you would see it move away, and the house would be completely empty. It's late at night, there's no one in here. When I was here for the first time, I came with the Shoppers Channel doing a piece on ghosts, and this is where I took them. I had never been here. They wanted a fresh place that I hadn't been to yet. So I took my mother with me just to take a ride for the day, and I left her in the car. So I came in here, and while we were looking for ghosts, apparently my mother had an experience outside. And this is what happened. I went out there, and she told me that she got out of the car because she saw a woman staring out to the sea. And she immediately started to pray for her because she thought that she was going to commit suicide. So I looked at my mother and I said, "Mama, what did she look like?" And she described her as having old-fashioned clothing. She had on a long black skirt. She had on a red blouse with billowy sleeves and a little pattern to it. Her hair was tied back in a bow, and then she had a bonnet on her head. And I said to my mother, "That's Abigail. That is where Abigail has been seen, out to sea, in here." And what we feel had happened is her husband went to sea and he never returned. He died. Ultimately, she died. And that's the last thing that she would remember, is waiting for her husband to return from the sea. And that's why you would have her always looking out to the sea, because she's waiting for him. But this is probably the most reported spirit activity in the house. This usually is where Robert the pirate used to stay, and he would hide behind this wall at one time, but I could always count on Robert being here when I did the tours, and people would often feel him when they would come into the house, you know, in this hallway. He was the first mate to Captain Morgan. You would also hear at times someone walking in the hallway, and it sounded almost as though it was a peg leg. We felt that was Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan, he could be a little brusque at times, as far as his personality was still rough. So there were times that you could almost hear some sort of like fighting going on, or some words that like of an argument. If you got very quiet and you listened very intently, you could hear some kind of discourse going on. At one time also, we've had people go by this window and actually see a figure standing and then move away when the place was closed totally. No one was in here at night.
On the outside of the building, I guess would be the very east end of the building, on the top floor again, we were always told, our family from Miss Nylander, that there was a captain of a ship that would sometimes appear in the window. And we didn't believe it, even though other things have happened to us. And we used to go over there probably every weekend looking into this window. And one weekend we went over there, my uncle and I, he's 6 years older than I am. We looked up in the window and we saw not a clear image, but you could see a smoky outline of a man. Pretty interesting. He hung around, I think there were 3 or 4 of us that actually witnessed that one, and he hung around a good half hour. And then we had a bunch of friends over here, and you know, as soon as everybody started going over there, he just kind of like dissipated. There's another room in the north end of the house, in the back, that overlooks the water, upstairs again. And she used to have that room with old, authentic letters from George Washington, some other letters of presidents that she had found. It was a nautical room, that room, and there were all little tiny rectangle pieces of carpet on the floor that when kids would come for a tour, they would sit on the carpet and listen to the story. So I went in there again by myself, nobody's around, and the whole room just started, the outside of the room just started spinning on me. It was just so weird. And I went over to the window and I was looking outside, and I remember seeing an image of an old ship out in the water. And as I went to open the window, because we weren't supposed to, I tried to open the window, the ship disappeared, the room stopped spinning.
On one of the tours, what we had is people were, going around and peeking in the windows, and someone actually saw a man with a bandana tied around his head, reaching as though he's cooking, turns around and he looks at them, gives them a dirty look, and then he dissipates. And this would be one of the pirates. We have Peter, who liked to go around playing with all the buttons. And you would have people's cameras, buttons would be changed. There was one incident when somebody's shoelaces were tied. And they went to leave the house, they were standing out there, and they went to walk and their shoelaces were tied. We could only assume that that was Peter because he liked to play games like that. I know historically we've had children who have died in the house here from high fevers. That's what we suspect are the children spirits that we see outside, and when we go outside I'll point that out to you where they have been seen. And we've always, Gertrude and I always suspected they were the children that once lived in the house.
This is the area where children have been seen playing, usually going in a circle. I've seen them myself, and many have over the years, because there's a girl, there's two boys. The little boys are dressed with the short pants, the knickers, and the knee socks. And the little girl, I would say, was somewhere around 7 or 8 years old. The boys were younger. And she had on like the long baloney curls and a long dress. You can tell it was like a bow, very old-fashioned clothing. And you could often hear them giggling. The first time I saw them, I was in the house, it was about midnight, and I was looking from the window outside, and I could see the children playing, and I could hear them giggling. My first reaction was, oh my God, we're terrible parents in the area, because how could these children be out playing by the water at midnight at the end of November with no coats on? As I looked closer, I could see that their clothing was unusual. And I was just watching them and listening to them, and then all of a sudden all three of them dissipated. These are the spirits of the children. Many, many recordings of sightings of seeing them outside playing at night.